Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outraised Voices. Again, I'm Sharon Lee Williams, your host, and I am really happy you're here. If you've been to our community before, I want to thank you for showing up again. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you, and bring a friend, and we thank you. So today, our CEO guest today is Justin Black, who happens to be one half of a powerful couple who show us that we are not defined by our old stories, but we are empowered by the strength we find in rewriting them. Hello, Justin Black. We're so happy you're here. I'm really, it's nice to see you. It's nice that you were the first male to be on Outraised Voices, so I appreciate you being here and doing this. And I wanted to say that Justin and his wife co-authored this book called Redefining Normal, their first book, I believe. And that, how I came to you, Justin, is that last year I was going to be doing a workshop, and I was doing this research, and I was looking up youth. I was doing a workshop on youth aging out of care, and I was doing research, and I found your name, both your names, and this book, and I went, wow, I think you're the first and only couple that I know who were in foster care together, maybe not at the same time, but we're in foster care and who are now married. That is like such a unique situation. But before we start that, I wanted to talk to you. As I was going through my notes, I went, the title, Redefining Normal, how two foster kids beat the odds, kind of triggered something in me. What are the odds? Are you talking about aging out when you wrote this? What are the odds?
Of course. And so first I want to say just thank you for having me on. I definitely appreciate that, and just appreciate the vibes and the space you create for these voices and conversations. And so I definitely just appreciate that. And so with that, what are the odds? I mean, I feel like we all have, when we look at the layout of who we are, our background and experiences, and you add on top of having lived experience in foster care, having generational trauma, whether you are someone who has, if you are a Black person, if you are someone who comes from a certain ethnicity, experience, whatever it may be, you kind of take a look at the landscape of the examples, the odds, and different things that are stacked against you in order as you walk this kind of pathway in life. And for myself and my wife, being that we have lived experience in foster care, being that we have the traumatic experiences that we have with our family, we had to take a step back and look at, okay, what are things stacked against us? And most people don't really think or know about what's stacked against you, because you kind of just walk this natural pathway of what's the pathway set before you, structured by your parents, your community, society, whatever it may be. You kind of walk this natural pathway set before you. And so with that, it can be very difficult to kind of take a step back and zoom out and see, like, okay, what are the things that are set before me? Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they healthy? Are they unhealthy? You know, what are the things that, where do I want to be in life, and where should I be in life? And with those who have a history and background of trauma, of foster care, it's easy for us to gravitate to those negative, unhealthy things in our background and things that we've witnessed throughout our life. And that can easily become the natural pathway and the barriers that are set before us and the odds stacked against us. And so, so many odds, but, you know, being able to identify that and work to overcome those things is definitely important.
So let's talk a little bit how you got into care in the first place. Let's start there. How did you get there?
Yeah, of course. So for myself, I am a kid from Detroit. 9 years old, entering into the foster care system, and growing up in Detroit pretty much my entire life up until around 20 or 19 years old when I transitioned to college. But I would say my transition into care looked largely like generational trauma on my mom and dad side of the family, being unaddressed and unresolved. going or being normalized where it wasn't possible to address. And so with this in mind, it was very difficult to really go through the process of understanding, who am I? Where does my value come from in these situations? Right. And so for me, it was just very difficult to, go through what's normal, what's not normal for me. And,
and you don't even have the language at that point. You're 9 years old and you've gone from a familiar situation, no matter how traumatic that situation is. This is what I know, into something. This is what I don't know. I don't know these people. I don't know how they're going to treat me. I don't know anything. And 9 is kind of, stuff at 9. You're really aware, because when I went into care, I was a baby. So I know what I know. So going in at nine, are there other kids? Are you going into a home, or are you going into a facility, or how does that work?
Yeah, so initially for myself, I transitioned into living with family for a few years, living with my oldest brother, transitioning from there to living with an aunt for a few years, transitioning from there to foster homes, a group home, until, I was a teenager and aged out of the system. And so traveling through a few different placements, and while, it is very, unstable and uncomfortable to be in as many homes as I've been in, it was definitely, I guess from this perspective now, definitely blessed to be able to be in the position that I was in, to be with family for a little bit, still have that connection. And, everybody has a different experience in foster care, where some people may need to go back and try to find their biological family. Whether blessed or not at the time, wasn't sure, but I still had a connection with my biological family and still knew who my parents were, able to visit them often. And because of addictions and different life circumstances, I wasn't able to really live with them at the time, which seeing them, and again, everybody's situation is different, but being able to see them in some ways was helpful with closure. But on the other hand was like, hey, Mom, Dad, why can't I live with y'all? Like, what's going on? And had to have some hard conversations in because of their addiction and lifestyle choices and things of that nature. I wasn't able to exactly live with them or have that normal parent relationship that most people have.
The bonding. So how does that, do you find that your trust, and when we talk about bonding and trust, and does that erode your trust in how you interact with other people, whether it's family members or not? Because it's such an insecure thing when you're taken from the home, or when you leave your first home. It's, there's a sense of like, where, as you say, where am I? Where do I belong? Whatever, all these other limiting beliefs. So how has that, or if it has, affected any of your relationships in terms of trust and feeling stable, or is that something you've just grown into and said, hey, this is my ground and here's where I stand?
Yeah, and trust is, I think a lot of it goes to how your process of entering into the system affects how you trust other people. And so for me, when I was 9 years old in Detroit, and the youngest of 5 siblings, my mom, we were on the run from Child Protective Services. We were like squatting in abandoned houses and very unfortunate situations. And from that point, my mom took a step back and saw how bad our situation really was. And, she had a hard talk with us, and it was like, hey, you're going to go live with, Yoda's brother, which he lived on his own at the time. And, and she made that hard decision, which is actually, looking back at it, very brave to have the self-awareness to say, hey, I'm not in a position to be able to take care of you guys, but I still want to see the best for you. And I'm saying this now, but like, I didn't have that mindset. You didn't feel that then. It's like, you just want to go, what? At 9, I'm like, my mom is giving up on me. She doesn't love us. And you really go through that as an adult. Now that I have kids, or I have a kid, I said kids, I have a child now, I'm able to see like my mom was making this decision in the best interest of our family. And so it was very difficult at the time. And through my teenage years, I had a lot of trust issues around, if my mom wasn't there to love me, then my mom and dad
Who
wasn't there
would
to love
be?
me, then who would love me? And taking that anger and resentment out on my other family members that I live with and other foster homes that I lived in. And
Sure.
so, it wasn't until I became an adult and entered college and had a different perspective on my relationship with my parents that I started to understand certain things, mature in certain ways, and really build another aspect of trust and empathy for my parents that I finally started to trust myself and even in my own personal relationships in a different way.
I love that you acknowledge your mom's bravery to say, with an awareness, to say, hey, and that was her saying, I love you. But that's not what you're hearing at 9 years old, as you say, but her bravery to say, hey, I can't do this. You got to go. I'm not doing right by you. You got to go. And just acknowledging that. When you aged out, did you age out from kinship or from a foster home or a group home? And what age did you age out at?
Yeah, I aged out at 21 in the state of Michigan. You age out
Oh,
typically at 21, or you do 19 and you do voluntary foster care, which is like, policy
what's that?
logistic thing you could talk about. But in certain states, you can age out at 21 versus 19 and do
Oh,
voluntary
okay.
foster care where stipends come to you instead of a foster parent and that whole situation. And so I aged out at 21 and I entered into a group home around 15 or 16 years old, where I lived there for a couple years. And group home, while I'm not an advocate for group homes exactly, but the one that I lived in it was created by like four amazing couples and funded by a great church and just provided some amazing mentorship. I was able to see successful Black businessmen and women and just
Oh,
be
that's
surrounded by people who really
fabulous.
believed in me and loved me. And they told me that I was going to college. Like, you're going to be
That
successful. You're going to do some amazing things. And nobody ever believed in me like the people who started this home believed in me. And I really worked toward, being successful, not even for myself, but because I didn't want to disappoint them. And
How did
so,
you acknowledge? How did you trust in the beginning that they were really supporting you, or you were waiting for the other shoe to drop until you actually stepped into that belief? Yeah, they really want me to do well.
well, it was a unique situation because at this point I transitioned from a few different homes, and
Yeah.
my mindset at this point was like, listen, I would do my best to just have somewhere to stay. And I remember, and I wrote this in our book, Redefining Normal, this line where I talked to the house parents and I said, whatever you do, just please don't give up on me. I'll try my
Oh.
best, but just please don't give up on me. And so I tried to do my part, and I told myself, if for whatever reason I get kicked out of this home, and I think that previous homes that I've been in before that, it was a lot of my end, it was a lot of their end for the parents in the house. But I told myself going into this group home, like, listen, if I leave this house, it's not going to be because I did something crazy or I just broke the rules or anything like that. I will do my part and do my best. And when I understood the standard, what was required of me, and they spoke my potential into existence of going to college and graduating college and so on and so forth, then I'm like, okay, if this is what you said can happen, if I do my best, then I will try my best and see where I land, and was able to do that.
In the group home, how many are there other, before we get to Alexis, but in the group home, are there other kids? Are you in an all male, or is it a mixed group, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, it was structured where it's about 4 or 5 ish boys in a house with like house parents and
Okay.
mentors where, we meet like kind of certain standards or requirements and things of that nature. And so and they had like another home for girls eventually opened. And so it was kind of the structure where we would just, go through different skills and see where we wanted to be as far as job, college, career, things of that nature. And so it was very focused in that way. We're not too many boys in the house. I mean, 4 or 5 could be a lot, but
Yeah. But did you get along with each other? How
I mean, it depends on who is in the house at the time.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
true, because it's not a consistent group. It's kind of an open door. People come in, kids come in and kids go out. Is that how it works?
yeah, I mean, a lot of times, if unfortunately,
Yeah.
if there were guys in the house who very aggressive or want to fight,
Yeah.
who just have different experiences, who may not,
Yes.
for how the house was structured, may not be the best fit, and so guys fight each other, and so
Yeah.
it's very kids do come in and out, and as part of the process, but being able to, I know a lot of people who were in that house who, really took in the mentorship and really just did the best that they could. And I always hope that I was one of those kids. And again, I wasn't perfect at this time, or not perfect at all, but I was definitely had a lot to learn and grow from. But I think it was an environment where the potential is you could do great things and go to college and be successful. And a lot of the boys in the house were able to do that. Some weren't. And so it was like I wouldn't say rotational, but it was like, it was an environment where some boys came in the house and maybe they had a lot of past trauma where they weren't a good fit and eventually left. Some guys were a good fit, and I was able to, still talk to them to this day and build good brotherhood and everything.
Wow.
But yeah.
And so your mindset, I'm listening to you talk, and the mindset, I don't know when that evolved. The mindset comes into when you said when you went to college at 19. But before that, all the things that are happening to you. And I wanted to ask about the male-female thing, because as a young black man, and as a young man, period, just dealing with emotion, because, as women, we go through a different whole thing. We're taking on this, we're not worthy. And we're holding that through, we can hold that through life. Do you find as a young man that you, not to say that all women are the same, I'm just saying that you don't have the hormone situation, so you're able to pivot? Did you feel you were able to pivot a little more easily, and how are your emotions? How are your emotions now in terms of, are you the huggy dad and the loving dad and the trusting and I give you all and my heart and
Yeah, well, I'm what they say, a girl dad. So,
love it.
I'm always, loving on my baby and, trying to
Yeah.
hug and kiss her and everything. And so
Yeah.
I do try to be a loving. I just want to instill a sense of joy and a sense of making sure that my kids always feel loved, and that I just know a lot of kids, or if you do grow up in foster care or even in a single parent, two parent household, I never want my household to be somewhere where it's like, my child is afraid to come home, annoyed by coming home, or our household is filled with love, joy, and respect for each other. And so
That's
I always
good.
want to make sure I instill those principles in my household. And so that's something I want to always do, and start that with my marriage first, but have that trickle down to my child as well.
Have you thought about being a foster parent?
Yeah, we have thought about it. And while when we first were dating and married, that was like a huge goal of ours to potentially be foster parents. I do think that, given my experience and given just my history and care, looking at when I first moved from my brother in foster care, and I think there's a lot of people in foster care who have good intentions, who want to be parents and want to house kids, and you just do it just out of the kindness of your heart, but you don't fully know what it takes to house a kid. And it's not just like, I have a spare room, come stay in this spare room, but the foundation and structure of your household, which a lot of the workshops that I do with parents now, the foundation and structure of your household will slightly shift, because you're bringing a new person in with different perspectives, different ways of seeing the world, and unfortunately different traumas and experiences, ways they communicate. And so, given that both me and Alexis have lived experience and care, while you never know, God may call us to foster and adopt one day, but as of right now, I know that I have a role in the child welfare system of mentoring, of donating, of training, of every single thing that I can do and give. At this moment, I mean, I'm still, trying to figure out my life and where I'm called to go and trying to figure out different steps. And so I don't think, maybe in the future, maybe in my
I
like a certain time, but as of right now, I don't have a strong yes or a strong no, but we'll see where
Yes.
things go in the future.
Well, you know what, Justin, and I asked you that question because for years I thought about it, and coming up on this interview, and I thought, well, why didn't I ever do this? I mean, I had reasons. Certainly, I was busy, but why didn't I do this? What I think for myself, there was a fear of 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 a me situation. Would I be good enough to to bring a child, what you're talking about, to bring a child in with all my mindset? I think there was some kind of fear in there, but I always thought I should be doing this, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't step into that role. So I asked you that question because I think as a foster child, I think it's challenging to say, oh, and I haven't met foster parents yet who have foster children or adopted, or maybe adopted, but not fostered children. So I just think it's just a curious situation that how we see ourselves as foster children and bringing foster children into our home. So that's why I was asking you that. You want to, your heart goes, yeah, I want to do this, but the other part goes, I'm afeared. I'm afeared. I was a little,
I just know so many people who come in this space with good intentions, and I've lived in like a couple houses where people have good intentions. Hey, we have a spare room. We don't want to see you homeless. We're going to help you out. And while I do strongly advocate for, current and former foster youth to have housing, to have access to these basic needs, I think sometimes it could be counterproductive and cause even more issues if you are not trained and prepared for, hey, this is what you can't just provide a bed in a room. There's so much more that goes into that. And while our marriages, our households and things may not be perfect, I do think that, I'm a newlywed. I only been married for like 4 years, which is still kind of new, I guess. But,
I love it. We're going to get to that, how you met Alexis and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so much more I need to learn about marriage and learn about parenting my own child to be able to bring a child in with unique experiences that I need to learn about myself as a young man and develop and grow to be able to invest. And I always advocate and say, listen, even if you're not fostering and adopting, like mentors have changed my life. And the reason why I'm here standing or sitting before you is because mentors have invested their time, money, energy, and effort into me. The reason why I went to college and did what I did is not even because of a parent or foster parent, it's because of a mentor who spoke life into me. So I think that, just because you're not fostering and adopting doesn't mean that you don't play a role in investing in the lives of young men and women.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was sorry. I just was thinking about that, having a mentor. And I go back, I'm just taking you back to my day, no mentor. We didn't have mentors. So I aged out at about 16. That was somewhere in there. And I say this is a different experience, of course. And I aged out thinking, this is great. I'm going to have freedom. I'm going to have no rules. And then all of a sudden I was out there and I hadn't a clue, not a clue, how to really deal with the reality of life. And, oh yeah, I have to go and get a job now and I have to do X, Y, Z. So when I hear you say you aged out at 21, I think that's so important. You're becoming who you are at that age. 16, 17, you're just out there in the elements and making a few missteps, even if you're not a foster child. But you being a mentor, I think is very important. We need more, especially men, especially black men, who are are doing it. But have you? I guess one of the questions too I had, were you in a white home at any point, or a non-black home? Did you have that sort of transracial experience?
Interesting enough, I don't have that experience. No.
Yeah,
So yeah,
because
live
that's
with
a whole other thing.
family and coming in foster care, and from my brother, from my aunt, and going into live with then my brother's friends' parents. And so I've grown up and growing into the group home, the house parents are black, and so I never really had
Yeah.
like no, I never. I guess I never had that. No.
Just because I've had that conversation with people, transracial adoption, which can be challenging within itself. Do you still get triggered by things from your
Well, I still
traumas
get
or past?
triggered by things. I haven't been in a while. Um, I'm trying to think of the last time something triggered me. I don't know. It's been a while. I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure. I think we all have our triggers and certain
Yes,
things.
yes.
I think I've coped with a lot of uh things in my life, and like my mom passed away in 2020. Kind of a spoiler if you haven't read the book yet, I guess.
Oh,
But my
I'm
mom
sorry to
passed
hear
away in
that. That's bad.
2020, and my dad is still alive. And one of the things I've coped with a little bit is just the role of my dad right now. And
Hmm.
for a while, I thought of, man, like, um, what would like, I'm still alive, and like, why wouldn't my dad want to be more intentional? I don't really talk to my dad as much. We call like every blue moon or whatever. Um, and one of the things I had to process for a while was that if I had a child in this world, then I will always want to like just check in on them, see how they're
Hmm.
doing, send them a text,
Hmm.
let them know that they're loved and checked in and everything.
Hmm.
Some things that I need right
Hmm.
now and as an adult. What I had to do and cope with, and that thought for a long time would get me kind of emotional. But I think
Hmm.
one of the things I had to cope with is that, I'm beyond blessed with the people who do love me and who I've surrounded
Yes.
myself with. And even my dad,
Yes.
now is like, I'm not angry or resentful at all. It's just, you deal with people's experiences, and while you may be looking for a text or call or people to check in on you every day, people's lived experience from their childhood and their teenage years is kind of manifested in the relationship they have with you now, and that may
Hmm.
not be how they express themselves or know, and people don't can't read your mind, so going through that process is something that for a long time kind of hurt me, or kind of that thought triggered me a little bit. But I think as of right now, I think I'm just kind of figuring this thing out called life, and trying to be the best father, husband, man of faith, and entrepreneur I can be.
All of this is wonderful. So let's talk about Alexis. How do you meet your wife?
Yeah, so interesting story. This is like the first chapter of our book, Redefining
I
Normal.
know.
And so it goes into, so I'm from Detroit, and my wife is from Flint, Michigan. And we met at Western Michigan University. So there's a program at the university called the Seed of Scholars Program. And the Seed of Scholars Program is for foster youth in higher education. And they provide like, well, I feel like every college kid could use a campus coach just to help them navigate life and this transition into
Hmm.
college.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
provide a campus coach for students in this program. And with students in this program, you basically just meet with your campus coach once a week. They have different programs just to get together and just like check in, different fun activities for, the students who are a part of the program. And one of the things that they do is a summer early transition week called Set Week, where before the semester starts, you have like this week long thing where you meet people in your cohort. You kind of talk with them and connect with them.
Yeah.
And on the first day of summer early transition week, I met Alexis, and the first person I met
Wow.
in the program. And I talk about how, I just sat at a table and tried to make small talk. Maybe I tried to flirt a little bit. I don't know, maybe. She said I
Maybe.
did, but
It's
thought I should make a
possible.
small talk. But we met, and it was just like, we just easy to talk to and have conversation with. And that entire week, just me being in a college environment, kind of shy and nervous. I just kept going back to our conversation with her. She was just easy to talk to. And so I did get the number by the end of the week. And then, we just talked all summer from there. And that's where it all started.
And when she talked about her experiences with you about going through care, and did you feel that, you felt you could support one another, but age-wise, where were you mindset and where was she mindset? Did you find that you were sort of going along the same path, or you were in the same mindset of growth mindset?
Yeah, so when it comes to our experiences in care and forming a relationship, one of the things that we wanted to be intentional and careful about is that we're not trauma bonding. And so it's common for people who have a history of trauma or foster care to trauma bond, and it can be very abusive and unhealthy, and you're just dependent on each other because you just know each other's background, which can be hard. And so we were kind of slightly going down that pathway a little bit, and we had to take a step back and say, all right, how can I work on myself individually? How can she work on herself individually? And so we really did some reflection around me finding a counselor. I had a bad relationship with counselors in my childhood. So, me revisiting that conversation of finding a counselor and finding more mentors in this environment where I was in my life, being in college. And so really building a community base a support for myself individually, and also her building mentors and, counselors and support for herself. And so we have this funny line in the conversation in the book where she asked me, we had this conversation around counseling. And I say, I don't need a counselor, I have you. And she was like, no. And that was a huge eye opener for me around, the level of support I need around community, friends, and support. And we need to have our own separate circles of support so we can, support each other in the way we need, and the roles we play in each other's life. And when it comes to trauma bonding, I feel like a lot of people play like, you are my soul and my everything, and you are, my world revolves around you, right? And for young people in college who are just dating, that's not a healthy place to be. We need our own individual level of support, and how we can individually develop and support each other in a healthy and appropriate way, where we can play a necessary role in each other's life, but not be the center of each other's universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was as you're speaking, I'm hearing this where people say sometimes, my better half. No, you don't want your better half. You want to come as whole as you can be, and the other person come as whole. That makes for a great, I think, relationship. And it sounds like you all talked it through before you stepped out and said, okay, we're going to take this to the next level. We're going to get married. So did you had individual counselors? Did you have marriage counselors to take you through that, or you just worked it through on your own because you had individual counselors, or how did it work?
Yeah, we were intentional about doing both marriage counseling and individual counseling. And I think even to this day, making sure that we understand where we are, and how do we deal with the stressors and the different situations of life in general. That's what every married couple deals with and goes through, whether you're, foster care or not. And so one of the things, that we didn't anticipate is how different life situations trigger certain things. And so where you currently are, as we were preparing to get married, you'd be maybe good in that point, but how can you prepare to communicate in certain ways? And how can you support yourself and one another when you are married and going through different things in life, or one person may be triggered, or I may be triggered, or, and, throwing in being a parent at the same time, and how do you process and go through those things? There are things that we didn't exactly know how to do, or most people probably wouldn't know how to do. You just kind of start to figure it out. But also, I think that's more of the conversations I'm having now with much of my peers around okay, so in foster care, you get to this level where hopefully, maybe individually, you start to live a healthy lifestyle, and then you find a partner, and then hopefully you can find a healthy relationship. Then you start to build from there. But then you get to this point where you're either married or you have a child, and most of my friends that I know, they say their parents are moving next to them so they can parents are moving next to them so they can take care of their child, and they're not triggered by seeing their child grow in certain things. And so there's certain levels of barriers you need to overcome, from the individual barriers to the relationship barriers to the parental barriers. And for a lot of youth who have experienced foster care, who now are basically parents now, we are not trained or supported with family support, and people around us. And so that's difficult.
So what is a tool that you use? What is a way of coping? Do you have a strategy? Do you meditate? I know you said you're faith-based, so I understand that. But is there a tool that you use in terms of, okay, when I'm going there, let me go here?
Yeah, so like I said, faith is a huge one, but also trying to make sure I'm accountable, see where I can get better, and just take a step back and see, one, how I could do better, alone time with how I could be a better father and a better husband, but also watching I think this is underrated, just watching other fathers and husbands and people who you want to learn from, trying to be around them. I think that if you want to be a great mother, try to seek out support from other great mothers. And we live in an age where the internet is real, so you can reach from a peer from across the country and schedule some Zoom calls and conversations, or just to cope and cry, whatever you need to do. I remember when I was, I found out Alexis was pregnant, and I'm like, I don't have the best relationship with my dad. I need to talk to other dads and see what they do. And so I just started reaching out to other dads in the community, or other dads that I know across the country and around this foster care network, around ways of support, and having those conversations. And so trying to be intentional, reaching out and knowing that I don't know everything. And so learning from other people has always been huge in my life, from being a teenager in that group home to now as a father and husband. And I noticed when I struggled the most in life is when I'm starting to be isolated, when I don't have people to talk to, when it just feels like me. And even when I'm married and in this family, I feel like alone. That's when I do get upset, or I let the worst parts of me rise to the surface level. But when I am surrounded by people who I can learn from, I can cope with and talk to, that's when I see the best versions of myself.
So when you say you don't do well, or when you're alone, is it a choice? Did you pull back there? Are you pulling back and saying, oh, why am I pulling back? Or it's just you're alone? What do you mean? You've chosen to be alone, or you're in a situation where you just feel, I don't want to deal with people, and then you realize, no, I have to deal with people because I want to be with people because I'm not in a good place?
Yeah, I would say even not just physically isolation, but probably emotional isolation of like, of I think a lot of times when situations in life come up, and difficulties in life come up, we have a choice of how we want to deal with that. I think for most of us, it's easy to just kind of self-isolate and just kind of go in this corner by ourselves, when really I think these hardships in life are meant to be shared, and we're not meant to carry the burden by ourselves. We're meant to carry the burden with family, friends, community, and everything, but it's so easy for us to just deal with everything on our own. And I don't believe that the weight of the world is meant to be carried just by us individually, but we need a partner, a friend, or someone to carry this load with us. And so I know this just for myself, and I'm sure other people as well. When we feel the weight and pressure from the world around us, we start to isolate, and it gets the best of us. But I need people continue to telling me, hey, even though you're struggling right now, you're still a great man. You are still a great father. You're still a great husband. I see how hard you're working. We need those words of encouragement. And I don't know if you or your listeners have taken the 7, what's it called? The love languages exam. the love languages exam. But when we are down, maybe it's words of affirmation. Maybe it's, words of affirmation, gift giving, whatever. You can look it up, the different affirmations and everything. But we need those things, and we need people who could pour that into us when we are going through tough times. And I'm always forgetting that, but I know I need to work on that more.
So when you look in the mirror now, the Justin from 9, 12, 15, 20, when you look in the mirror, who do you see now? What's that? Who do you see? Who's reflected back at you? I know you, but who, what's the power in that mirror that you see?
Yeah, I always think, and when I look back, I've lived so many different lives. I feel like I've lived like 4 lives in one.
Thanks.
And I think about if like a cat.
Should be smooth sailing from here on out, then, right?
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah.
But I try not to look in the rear view too much, but I do feel when I think about these experiences, who I was as a teenager and being an angry kid who wanted to fight all the time, or who would just do things to hurt himself, hurt other people. I ultimately, looking back, I'm proud. I'm blessed that I survived a lot of those situations. I'm blessed that where I am right now, and just proud of like the development, because I can't imagine being the same person I was at 13 and 14, the anger, the bitterness, resentment. I try to just zoom out when you zoom in on a particular situation or something you fail at or struggle with, you could think that this failure or current situation in life is all that there is and makes up everything. But once you zoom out and look at your life from like where you were, whether it's 9 years old, entering foster care, or who I am right now, I think I get a sense of perspective and a sense of joy of where I am and where I've landed, and just such gratitude for the opportunity.
Yes. I love that you're using joy. I want to ask you, what is something that someone said to you that lifted you up, that encouraged you? One thing that you can remember that someone said that helped you to move forward.
I don't know if it was said exactly like this, but just my future is in my hands. And one of the things I always teach when it comes to young students or students who are Black men, who are former foster youth, whatever it may be, I always try to shift their mindset to help them understand that your future is in your hands. And I've grown up around people, and even know a lot of people who feel as if no matter what I do, what I say, or whatever happens, I am out of control. And so it doesn't matter what I do with my mind, my body, or what I put in my body. It doesn't matter. I'll end up wherever life takes me. I want to always encourage people that your life is, you have control over a lot more than you believe. And even in foster care, I try to teach, current and former foster youth this a lot, because, again, it's hard because, when you are in foster care, literally somebody could, move where you live, all your belongings, and so much does seem out of your control. And a lot of times it can be, but I always tell my narrative and testimony around, even being homeless or in abandoned houses or whatever, I still had a sense of creativity where I'm creating comic books and writing books and doing these small things that I thought were probably stupid, but just things that just gave me joy and happiness. And little did I know that these same stories that I wrote as a 9-year-old in an abandoned house would be the same stories that I write in a book being sold to thousands of people now. And so just controlling, even if it's like 2% of a situation, control what you can control and do the best of what you can do. And majority of the time, or eventually you will have the best possible outcome.
What do you see with the youth? Do you find more youth are coming into care now, or are they being able to go back to their first families, to homes, or where is the system at now for youth in care? Are there more youth coming into care?
Just from a lot of the mentors and people that I know who are social workers, who are foster parents, and play these administrator roles or leadership roles in the system, I do get a feeling that there are more people in the system, the number is growing larger and less available homes. I'm
Yes.
working with in conversations with organizations who are building more homes and more support systems for youth, and so working on that now. But I think the situations are getting a lot worse, and young people are not able to go back home as much, which is pretty difficult. But I know a lot of programs who are working with parents and training parents to see how they could build a home and build their life to where they can get their kids back and really have a healthy family and everything. And so that's the
That's the
difficult part.
goal.
But it's, again, what if you're like my parents who unfortunately maybe never get into a space where you can live a healthy enough lifestyle to take your kids back? And I feel like that's the more common situation that happens.
Yeah. So before we close out here, I want to ask you, what's one question you would have liked me to ask you that is relevant to your situation and helps and, all of that? What's one question I didn't ask you that you would like me to have asked you?
Yeah, that's a good question right there. One question you can ask me is, I'm trying to think. I guess you kind of asked it a little bit already, but I always want to speak to a young kid who seems who feels as if they don't have, they feel stuck. I think that's the worst. Some of the worst situations to be in their life is to feel stuck, feel like you don't have any options or choices. I always want to use my voice and experience to empower, to put control back in the hands of people who do feel either oppressed or struggling or feel like they don't have options. And a lot of times that is the current foster youth who are in the system. And so I feel like you've already asked it, but just trying to figure out more ways to support that kid who feels as if everything is out of their control or don't exactly feel loved by those that are around them.
Not worthy, possibilities. They feel there's no possibilities. There's no future. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Well, thank you, Justin, for being here. And I just want to say that I know you're a speaker and I know author and you've traveled and you've done so much, and we'll have all your bio in at the end of the show. But I just, you're inspiring. You really are inspiring. It's inspiring for me to see who you are and to talk to you and to hear your voice. And I know you help a lot of people out there, you and your wife. And I hope I can get Alexis on down the road and to talk about the other perspective. But I say this to people because it's always in my heart. I'm proud. I'm very, very proud to see this, especially as a young black man navigating this world. And I wish I had had a mentor like you when I was doing it, coming through, all navigating my own journey. But I really appreciate you having this conversation with us, and I wish you well. And I know you're just going to do great things, and you are doing great things. Oh, by the way, what's your daughter's name?
Daughter's name is Mava.
Is
Mava, like Ava, with an M in the front.
Oh, nice. Lucky Mava. She's very lucky to have you as a dad. So I appreciate you. Be well, and thank you.
No, thank you for having me on. It's a blessing, and I'm so grateful. So I appreciate it all.
I appreciate you. I want to thank Justin for sharing his voice with us today. And as we embrace the journey of redefining what normal means for each of us, let's remember that our stories are not limitations, but invitations to create a life filled with purpose, connection, and hope. The pen is in your hands. How are you going to write your next chapter? Until next time, I'm Sharon Lee Williams. And this is Outraised Voices.